My daughter-in-law has been using my workshop for 3 years. I built that workshop. Paid every hydro bill on it without saying a word. $180 a month through 3 Ontario winters. And stored $42,000 of someone else's furniture in it, because that was the family thing to do. She laughed at me, on speakerphone, with a client standing 4 feet away. Before I get into what happened after, drop your city in the comments. Just your city. I want to know who's up at this hour. And if this story sits with you somewhere, hit subscribe because what I'm about to tell you took 11 weeks and I've never told all of it to anyone. It started on a Tuesday in February. My name is Gerard, I'm 57, and I run a small hardwood flooring business out of Hamilton, Ontario. Installation, refinishing, the occasional tile job. Nothing glamorous, I've been doing it since I was 29. The truck I drive is a 2016 GMC Sierra, with 340,000 kilometers on it, because in this trade, you put the money into the tools, not the vehicle. On that Tuesday morning, I turned the key and got a sound like someone threw a wrench into a box fan. The engine caught. The truck did not move. My mechanic on Barton Street told me before he'd even put it on the lift. He could smell it. Cracked block. He wiped his hands and gave me the number. $1,800 to repair a truck worth $1,200. My father was already in the front hall with his coat on. He's 83 years old. Congestive heart failure. 3 times a week, Monday, Wednesday, Friday. He goes to the cardiac rehabilitation clinic at St. Joseph's Healthcare on the West Mountain, 9 to noon. The sessions keep the fluid off his lungs, keep his heart working against something other than just gravity. In 2 years, I haven't missed a single session, not one. He had his canvas bag on his knees, water bottle, his blood pressure notebook. He'd been sitting there since 7:45 because he doesn't like to make me wait, even though pickup wasn't until 8:20. "Dad," I said, "the truck's done." He looked up and read my face before I finished the sentence. "He's always done that." "It's fine, son," he said. "I'll sort something out." There was nothing to sort out. His license went 2 years ago, same month as the diagnosis. I called a cab company first. The dispatcher told me the run to St. Joseph's and back would be about $86 each way, cash. I had $40 in my wallet and a flooring job I couldn't reach without a vehicle, which meant the invoice wasn't going out, which meant the account was staying thin. I stood in my kitchen and scrolled to the number in my phone, my daughter-in-law. Before I dial it, let me tell you about that number. 3 years ago, my son Tate got married. He was 28, she was 26. She'd just started a home staging business. The kind where you furnish empty houses before listing, it's so they photograph, clean, and sell for more. It's a real business in this market. Hamilton real estate was moving fast, and agents who used stagers were getting offers inside a week. She had a good eye for it, I'll say that plainly. What she didn't have was storage. A staging business runs on inventory. Sofas, dining sets, lamps, artwork, bedding, rugs. She'd been renting a unit in a commercial facility on Upper James for $1,500 a month. Climate controlled, loading dock, the works. I have a workshop attached to my house. 600 square feet, insulated, heated off the same furnace as the main building. I built it myself in 2009, the summer after my wife Joan passed. I needed something to do with my hands that year. My flooring equipment lives there, but there was room, real room. I offered it and told her not to worry about the cost. "That's the thing," I said. "Don't worry about the cost." She said, "Are you serious?" And she hugged me the way a person does when they're genuinely surprised. She said she'd pay me back once the business found its footing. I told her family doesn't keep score. Tate was standing by the truck watching us, and he had an expression I didn't know how to read at the time. I know how to read it now. She moved in that month. $42,000 worth of furniture, decor, and props, staged in my workshop like a magazine set. A contact of hers came in and installed better LED track lighting because, she said, clients sometimes toured the space. I didn't ask who paid for the lights. For 3 years, I paid the electricity on that workshop. Hydro 1, averaging $180 a month in winter, less in summer. 36 months. I never handed her a bill. I never made a comment at Christmas. I never brought it up when they went to the Dominican. I called her at 8:05 on that Tuesday morning. She picked up on the 4th ring. Her voice was warm the way it always was, almost musical. "Hey, how are you?" I kept it short. "My truck's finished," I said. "Can you drive my father to St. Joseph's at 8:45 and pick him up at noon? It's 20 minutes from your place." A pause. Then she laughed, small, almost polite, the kind of laugh you give when someone asks something they should already know the answer to. Gerard, she said, that's not really my responsibility, is it? I have a client consultation at 9. This is your thing to sort out. She was in my workshop when she said it. I know that because I could hear the echo off the insulated walls I'd built with my own hands, and under her voice, someone else's weight shifting. A throat cleared. Her client was already there. She hadn't taken me off speaker. I was in my kitchen. My father was 6 feet away in the hallway with his coat buttoned to the throat and his bag on his knees, and I was on speakerphone in a room I'd been paying to heat for 36 months, listening to a woman tell me my 83-year-old father was not her responsibility. I said one word, understood, and I ended the call. If you've ever said that word, not because you agreed, but because you finally stopped expecting something, type it in the comments. Just that word. I want to see how many of us are out here tonight. And subscribe, because what came after took 11 weeks and I've never told the whole of it. Dad, I said, walking back into the hall, let me sort this out. Son, he hadn't moved, just call a cab. The cab was $86 each way, $172 round trip, 3 times a week, on top of a repair bill I couldn't pay and a job I couldn't reach. I did the math on the walk back from the mechanic. 3 weeks minimum until I could afford any replacement vehicle. 3 weeks at $516 a week in fares, $548 I didn't have. I didn't tell my father the number. I told him it was handled. He looked out the window the whole ride. Somewhere past Mohawk, he said, I keep thinking you should just put me somewhere, a facility. It'd be easier for everyone. There's no answer to that doesn't break something. So I didn't try. I sat in the St. Joseph's waiting room for 3 hours with a Tim Hortons coffee I bought in the lobby. At 10:15, I opened my phone. She had posted to Instagram a photo of my workshop, my walls, the floor I'd laid myself, with the staging furniture arranged like a shoot. Caption said, excited to show this space to a new client today. Our private showroom in Hamilton's West End. Swipe for the full set. I stared at that for a while. Then I pinched the photo and zoomed into the background. On the wall behind a linen sofa she'd dressed with throw pillows, just visible between 2 framed prints she'd hung on my studs, was the pegboard I installed in 2011, my flooring tools, my pull bar, my tapping block, my knee pads on the bottom hook where Joan used to hang her garden gloves. Our private showroom. The clinic technician, a woman named Shirley, who'd been working that floor since my father started, caught my elbow in the hallway on the way out. He looks strong today, she said. You've never missed one. People don't understand what that means. She told me anyway. What happens when they miss? Fluid builds on the lungs. The heart starts working against a wall it can't move. Miss 1 session, you feel it. Miss 2, you're in emergency. The clinic schedule doesn't bend for anyone. I drove home with my father asleep on my shoulder. Wednesday evening, I knocked on Tate's door. He lives 12 minutes from me, on a street of wartime bungalows they'd converted into something decent. He opened the door about 4 inches and looked at me, and before he met my eyes, he looked back over his shoulder into the house. I noticed that. Tate, I need you to take your grandfather on Friday, 8:45 pickup, noon return. I'll have him ready. He rubbed the back of his neck. He's been doing that since he was 11, when he's about to disappoint somebody. Dad, this week is really hard. I've got the Aldershot job running, and it's just a bad week right now. Every week is a bad week now, I said. He flinched. Then he came outside, pulling the door mostly shut behind him, and his voice dropped to almost nothing. I took him twice in January, he said. The Monday run and the Wednesday. I didn't tell her. I looked at my son. He had driven his own grandfather to a medical clinic and hidden it from his wife like it was something to be ashamed of. He was 31 years old. From inside, babe, who's at the door? Everything on his face rearranged itself in under a second. He turned his head and called back bright and easy. Just a neighbor. Recycling bins question. The door didn't open. I stood on that step, and I was holding a piece of mail I'd picked from the box on the way up the walk without thinking about it. It came to my address because I was still the subscriber of record on a storage business insurance policy. I'd added her staging inventory to 2 years back when she'd mentioned she wasn't sure the contents were covered. $1,100 a year. Auto-drafted. I folded that envelope in half and put it in my coat pocket. I'm not asking you to fight anyone. I said to the closed door. I'm asking you to remember whose name is on that workshop. I drove home in my neighbor's borrowed Civic. I went into the workshop and turned on the bench light. And then I opened the bottom drawer of the steel cabinet against the north wall. I hadn't opened it since Joan died. She organized everything, receipts, contracts, warranties, all filed with her handwriting on the tabs. She used a green felt pen. I'd kept buying her black ones and she'd lose them and find a green one somewhere. Inside the bottom drawer, a folder, tab in green felt, workshop, Tate. I sat down on the shop stool and opened it on my knees. At the front, a printed email chain, 3 years old, her first message asking about the space, my reply offering it temporarily, rent-free, while the business got started. Her reply with 3 exclamation points, no lease, no agreement, no signatures anywhere. Just emails I'd printed and kept because Joan had taught me to print and keep everything. Behind that, 36 Hydro 1 statements. My name on every one. Workshop circuit highlighted in yellow in Joan's handwriting because she used to reconcile the accounts on Sunday afternoons. $180 average. 36 months. $6,481 and some change. Behind that, the insurance rider. Her inventory listed as covered property on my policy, $100 a year for 2 years. And at the very back, a single index card, green felt pen, Joan's handwriting. It said, when you're ready to give it back, give it back. Don't wait for them to deserve it. Wait until you know why you're doing it. She knew. 3 years ago, she'd put a card in a drawer where she knew I'd eventually look, and then she died, and I never looked, until now. My phone buzzed, a text from her. Hey, so we were thinking, would you be open to getting the workshop arrangement put in writing? Just to make things official for our end. Thanks so much. She wanted the paper. She'd never asked for paper in 3 years. She was asking for it now. Thursday, 7:48 in the morning. I decided to ask her once. One clean question, yes or no. She picked up on the second ring, which she had never once done in 3 years. There was noise behind her. Voices. The sound of heels on my hardwood floor. Her consultation had already started. The sound went hollow. I knew exactly what she'd done. Set the phone down on a surface and let it broadcast. Leanne, I said. I'll ask once. My dad has cardiac rehab tomorrow at 8:45. Can you drive him, yes or no? 2 seconds of nothing. Then the small, polite laugh. The telemarketer laugh. Gerard, she said. He has a son. That's you. That's not a me situation. I'm sorry. I really can't. And from somewhere in my workshop, because that echo was unmistakable, a different voice. Older. Flat. Not asking, stating. Leanne, is that Gerard? Who is that on the phone? I knew that voice. Shirley. From the clinic. She'd told me in August she was doing real estate consultations on the side. She'd moved to a house up the escarpment. She was standing in my workshop at that moment, and she had heard every word. There was a silence I will carry for the rest of my life. I did not shout. I have never once raised my voice at that woman. I said one word. Understood. I hung up, set the phone face down on the bench, walked to the front of the house. My father was on the porch. Canvas bag, water bottle. He'd been out there since 7:15. Coat buttoned to the throat. Dad, I said, let's go. Cab. Neither of us said anything the whole ride. Somewhere past the 403 overpass, he put his hand over mine on the seat. He has done that maybe 3 times since I was a child. You did right, he said. Then why does it feel wrong? He took his time. Because you're a decent man, Gerard. Decent men feel everything twice before it settles. I need to stop here. If you've ever said understood to end something you should have ended years earlier, not to the person, but to the version of yourself that kept hoping, type that word in the comments. Just that one. Somebody scrolling past tonight needs to find it. And subscribe. Because the next 9 days are the part I've never told. Friday afternoon, I went to see a property lawyer I'd done flooring work for, a woman named Elspeth, who had an office above a barber shop on James Street North. 40 years of other people's worst decisions on shelves behind her desk. I walked in without an appointment, and she took one look at my face and cleared the next hour. I spread Joan's folder on her desk. She went through it without speaking, the way a surgeon works, nothing extra. When she finished, she folded her hands. The workshop. You are the owner of record. The structure is on your property. She has no lease, no license agreement, no documented right of occupation beyond a temporary verbal offer. Under Ontario law, she does not have tenancy rights because it is a commercial use space, not residential. You give 60 days notice. Permission ends. She turned over the hydro statements. The power costs are not legally recoverable because you never invoiced, but they establish a pattern. 3 years of you bearing costs she should have borne. It doesn't give you a claim. It tells a story if anyone needs the story told. Then she turned to the trust document. My wife and father had filed it with a notary 2 years back. It named me as sole caregiver. It listed the clinic schedule. It said, I hope, but do not require that my family will help carry this. Elspeth smoothed the page flat. She turned it toward me, and she put one finger on the witness line. I looked down. I'm not going to tell you what I saw. Not yet. You'll see it when she saw it. I looked up. Elspeth, I said. She signed this herself. Elspeth took her glasses off. She was quiet for a moment. I can only read you what's been sitting in your own files for 3 years, she said. The rest is yours. Saturday morning, 2 cab bookings canceled through the app. Surge errors. My phone had been on silent overnight. My father missed his Friday session. First one in 2 years. He was fine Saturday afternoon. That's the part nobody tells you. He ate soup and watched the Leafs game and told me not to make a thing of it. At 2:20 in the morning, I heard him from down the hall. He was sitting on the edge of his bed, breathing the way a man breathes when breathing has a cost. Ankles swollen past the joint, lips a color I'm not going to describe. I rode in the ambulance holding his hand. He pulled the oxygen mask off to say something, and the paramedic told him to put it back, and he did it anyway. Gerard, his voice was almost nothing. Don't be angry at Tate, he's young. 83 years old, fluid on his lungs, and that's what he used his air for. The doctor came out just after 6 in the morning. She was kind, and then she stopped being kind because she needed me to hear the actual words. Another 6 hours, she said, and we'd be having a very different conversation. I sat in the waiting room in a plastic chair with a coffee I didn't drink. I opened my phone. She had posted, a resort near Collingwood, snow on the trees, a fireplace. Caption, sometimes you just need to refill your cup. Self-care isn't selfish. In the corner of the frame, parked against a snowbank outside the window, was her white cargo van with the staging logo on the side. The one I'd helped her buy in year 1 with an $8,000 personal loan. I had told her not to worry about repaying. I didn't share it, I didn't comment, I took a screenshot, then I typed one message to Elspeth, Monday morning, bring the file. Later, Tate showed me the texts she'd sent him that weekend. I've never forgotten the wording. Babe, your dad is so manipulative about this whole caregiver thing. Using guilt like this is a form of emotional abuse. We need to protect our peace. Monday, Elspeth's office. The workshop, she said, notice to vacate, 60 days. Then she turned a page. She's applied for a business development loan through Meridian Credit Union. In the business plan under assets and resources she has listed. Private showroom space, Hamilton on 600 squeefed, estimated equivalent value, $28,800 per year. I sat with that. It is not her space, Elspeth said. It has never been her space, and she has put your property on a financial document as if it were an asset she controls. Then she turned to the trust document, smoothed the page, rotated it toward me, put one finger on the witness line. And there, in blue ink, in a looping hand I recognized from every birthday card she'd ever signed, was her name. Witness number 2. Signed at the notary office 6 months after the wedding. She'd been there with Joan. I hadn't known that. Joan had brought her, said it was a family matter. She wanted Leanne to be part of it. And my daughter-in-law had signed her name to a document that spelled out in plain English that the clinic schedule was a family obligation, that one man was carrying it, that the family might help. She signed it and went to find whatever came next, and she never once read what she'd witnessed. I looked up. Elspeth, I said, she signed this herself on purpose, in front of my wife. Elspeth set her glasses down. You don't have to use it, she said. You only have to know it exists. Tate came to the workshop alone on Tuesday evening. He set a piece of paper on my bench, a BDC pre-qualification letter with her name on it, attached to it, a business plan. On page 3, under assets, private showroom space, Hamilton on, 600 skief, conservatively valued at $28,800 per year equivalent. She says you offered this permanently, Tate said. She says you told her it was hers, as long as she needed it. Tate, I said. I haven't spoken to your wife since Thursday morning. She blocked my number the day after. He didn't argue, not even a second of it. He just sat down on the stool and said something I think had been sitting in him for a long time. She lied to me. I picked up the BDC letter. I turned it over. She'd printed it on the back of a Meridian document she'd been reviewing. Pre-approval pending asset verification. I set it down very carefully. The way you set down a chisel you've just realized is sharper than you thought. What are you going to do? He asked. I folded the letter and put it in my shirt pocket. I'm going to give her a choice. Tuesday night, I drafted 3 options through Elspeth. Option A, she drives my father to St. Joseph's twice a week for 8 weeks, until I've sorted a vehicle. The workshop arrangement continues as is. No retroactive costs, no documentation required, no hard feelings. Done. Option B, we formalize the arrangement. $1,400 a month, below market because she's family. Month-to-month lease, her inventory properly insured in her own name. My property removed from any financial schedule she files. Option C, she vacates within 60 days. The inventory goes. The relationship doesn't have to. This part does. Response required by Friday at 5 p.m. Elspeth read it back over the phone and then said, "You're hoping she picks A." "Yes," I said. "I'm standing in a workshop full of $42,000 of furniture that doesn't belong to me. And what I want is for my 83-year-old father to get to his appointments. That's all I ever wanted." "After everything, you'd let it go that cleanly?" "Elspeth," I said, "if she takes A, my father gets to the clinic. I never wanted the space back." Friday, 5 o'clock, nothing. At 5:22, a notification from the Hamilton West Neighbors Facebook group. I'm in that group because I've done work for half the street. She had posted. I'm going to read it exactly as she wrote it. Heartbroken to share something that's been weighing on me. My father-in-law is threatening to revoke a workspace he gifted our family because I chose to set a healthy boundary around informal caregiving expectations. I have a business. I have a life. Saying no is not a crime. Sending love and praying for our family right now. 214 reactions. 81 comments. That's toxic, hun. Protect yourself. Cut him off. Classic controlling behavior. You don't owe anyone your time. 3 people I had laid floors for. 1 man whose mother I'd helped carry furniture out of a house the week she died because he couldn't face it alone. I read every comment. I didn't reply to a single one. My father called from his hospital bed to ask if I'd eaten. He hadn't seen the post. He doesn't use Facebook. He doesn't use anything except his blood pressure notebook and a cordless phone with big enough buttons he can read without his glasses. Everything all right, son? It's nothing, Dad. How are you feeling? At 8:41 the next morning, 1 new comment appeared. 1 line, no exclamation points, no capitals beyond the first word. Shirley, from the clinic, who had been in my workshop the morning of the speakerphone call. She wrote, "I was standing in that workshop on Thursday morning, Leanne. 8 of us were. I'll leave it there." 81 comments and then nothing. Not one more reaction, not a heart, not a thumbs up, not a laughing face. You could feel 214 people close the app at the same time. At 9:55, my phone rang. A number I didn't know, a woman's voice, a pause before she spoke. "Mister." She used my last name. "This is Leanne's mother. I need you to tell me what is actually happening." I sat down. The following Saturday, she hosted a portfolio showcase in my workshop. She'd posted it to her business page 2 weeks earlier. A client open house. Come see the inventory, meet the team, wine, catering. She'd invited 19 real estate agents from the Hamilton and Burlington boards, 4 architectural photographers, and a development loan officer from Meridian named Stuart, who she'd been cultivating for months because she needed him to move on the BDC application. She'd built the entire afternoon around showing him the space, her space, the one on the asset list. She had not told me about the event. She had sent the invitations from her business address, which she'd listed as the workshop address, which is my home address. My neighbor showed me the flyer on Thursday. I sent her one message Friday morning. "I'll be there." I wore a clean shirt. I brought Elspeth's folder. 12 people already on the lawn when I arrived at 2:06. Candles in the workshop windows. Music through a Bluetooth speaker. She'd arranged the space beautifully. Warm lighting in the ceiling she'd installed herself. The furniture placed the way she understood space, which was genuinely well. Stuart from Meridian was by the window, holding sparkling water. Leanne's mother was against the back wall in a gray cardigan, watching the door. Shirley was there. She'd been invited through a mutual real estate contact, had no idea whose workshop it was, until she walked in and recognized the pegboard. Tate was in the corner with a plate of food he hadn't touched. She saw me from across the room. Her whole face opened, and she came toward me with both arms slightly out, performing something for everyone watching. Everyone, she said, this is my father-in-law, he actually came, even after, well, that's family, isn't it? Some people applauded. I want you to sit with that. 30 people in a room clapped because she'd apparently forgiven me. I looked at my watch, 2:09. I came to say something myself, I said, before you hear it another way. The space looks beautiful. You have a real eye for it. Always have. She smiled. See, no hard feelings, that's how. The doorbell rang. She was carrying a cheese board and she went to the door with her hip, still smiling, and pulled it open. A man in a gray jacket, clipboard, not smiling. He said her full name. She said yes. He handed her an envelope, turned around, and walked back down the path to a sedan at the curb. He left the door open. Nobody moved. The music kept playing. Nobody thought to turn it off. She stood in my workshop doorway with a legal envelope in her hands. She looked at me. Her hands weren't steady. It's not a lawsuit, I said. I kept my hands at my sides. It's a notice. I gave you 3 options on Tuesday. You didn't choose, so I chose. She tore the flap open. I watched her pull the pages out. I watched her read the first page, read it again. What is this? Her voice came apart in the middle of the sentence. You don't have to read it here, I said, but you do have to read it. She wasn't reading, she was looking at me, so I told her what was in it, slowly, in a workshop where nobody was breathing. Page 1, Notice of Termination of License to Occupy. 60 days. Page 2, Property records showing me as sole owner of record for the attached structure. Pages 3 through 5, 36 Hydro 1 statements. My name. $6,481. Pages 6 and 7, Insurance declarations. Her inventory listed as covered property on a policy I owned and paid. $2,200 over 2 years. Page 8, the original email chain. My offer. The word temporary. The word rent-free. My name. No signature from her. Pages 9 through 11, the letter I'd sent Tuesday. Option A, Option B, Option C, timestamp at the bottom. No response received. Someone near the back made a sound that wasn't words. Stuart from Meridian had not moved. He set his glass down on the work table. It was the only sound in the room. He took 2 steps forward, and when he spoke, he wasn't being cruel. He was a man doing arithmetic in public and finding a number that didn't add up. Leanne. His voice was quiet. You listed this space on your asset schedule. I have that document on file. Nobody said anything for a very long time. I'm not taking anything from you, I said. I'm stopping the giving. Those are different things. She got to the last page. All the color left her face at once. She looked up at me. What is this? She said. Her voice was almost nothing. What is this page? On your wedding day, I said, you and Joan went to a notary together. 6 months after you were married. Do you remember? She stared at me. Page 12 is the witness page of the trust document my wife and my father executed that year. The document that named me as my father's sole caregiver, that listed the clinic schedule, that said I hope, but do not require that my family will help carry this. Witness number 2, your signature in blue, in the looping hand you sign birthday cards with. What? On your wedding day. 8 witnesses total. Several of them are in this room. I didn't read it, she said. It was just a witness form. Nobody reads those. I know, I said. You never read it. That is the whole thing. She sat down hard on the arm of the sofa. The folder went to the floor. Someone handed it back, and she didn't look at who. Her mother crossed the room, straight through the middle of everyone, past the catering table, past Stuart, and she stood in front of her daughter and looked at her for a long time. Her voice was very level. Leanne, what did you say to that man on the phone about his father? Say it again for me, right here. Leanne didn't answer. I raised you better than a room to put furniture in. Leanne turned her head and looked past all of them to the one person in that room she'd never once had to worry about. Tate, her voice went thin. Say something. Everyone in the room looked at my son. He was 31 years old. He had a paper plate in his hands, and they were shaking enough that the plate was moving. He set it down on the corner of the work table. He stood up straight, which I hadn't seen him do in a long time. Grandpa ended up in hospital on Saturday, Tate said. And you posted a spa photo from Collingwood. That was all. 9 words, and then he sat back down on the stool with his face in his hands. 28 years old. Weight 31. And he finally said it. Nobody yelled. I think people always expect yelling. There wasn't any. There was the sound of coats being taken off the hook by the door. Stuart left first. He put his glass in the sink. He didn't say goodbye to anyone. Then the photographers. Then the agents in pairs. Quiet the way people leave when they've witnessed something they didn't come to see. Shirley stopped beside me on her way out. She put her hand on my shoulder for exactly 1 second and kept walking. 14 minutes. The workshop was empty in 14 minutes. The music was still going. I stayed. I said this to her while she sat on the arm of the sofa with the folder in her lap. The space is yours for 30 more days. If you drive my father to St. Joseph's on Monday morning, one time, I will tear this notice up in front of you. Option A never closed. It only closes when you decide it does. She didn't look at me. Get out of my house, she said. I'll go. The offer doesn't expire when I walk out that door, only when you decide it does. Monday morning, 8:30, my father on the porch, canvas bag, water bottle. 8:45, 8:52. No car came down my street. I want to be honest about this part. I was standing in the doorway with the cab app open, and I hadn't hit confirm. 57 years old, standing there, hoping a silver Honda was about to turn the corner. Dad said, without turning around, book the car, son. I hit confirm, and then I went and sat down next to him on the step. He took my hand. 9:01. A vehicle slowed at the end of the driveway. It wasn't a cab. It was a white cargo van with a staging logo on the door, 4 years older than when I'd helped her buy it. Tate got out in his work boots and came up the walk. He opened the passenger door. Grandpa, he said, I'll take you. He couldn't look at me. I should have been doing this all along, Dad. I'm here now. That's all I've got. He drove his grandfather 3 times a week. Never missed one. He traded shifts with his crew. He sat in the St. Joseph's waiting room for 3 hours, with a paperback he couldn't concentrate on. He learned to hold his grandfather's elbow in the parking lot, without making it look like helping. 6 weeks later, Tate was in my workshop with a coffee, and we were both looking at the floor instead of each other the way men talk sometimes. She gave me an ultimatum, he said, the driving or her. What did you say? I said okay to the driving. He turned the cup around in his hands. She didn't leave, he said it quietly. I thought she would. I've thought about that a lot. She couldn't afford to. The Meridian pre-approval had been withdrawn. The BDC application fell through. Without the workshop on the asset schedule, the numbers didn't work, and without the loan, the business didn't scale the way she'd planned. She still stages houses. She's still good at it. But the story she'd been building, the one with the private showroom, the one that needed my property to look like hers, that story was gone. She deleted the Facebook post on a Sunday. Nobody in the group ever mentioned it again. Shirley never posted another word. She didn't need to. The workshop sat empty for 60 days. In April, I swept it out. I rehung my tools where they'd always been. I put Joan's garden gloves back on the bottom hook of the pegboard. Tate came the first Saturday after and asked if I could show him something. He'd never learned flooring. He handed me a coffee and stood there waiting. His grandfather sat in the corner on a lawn chair I'd dragged in from the garage, coffee in hand, watching us. He critiques everything we do with total confidence. He has not once been wrong. Leanne has not come to the workshop. I don't invite her, and I don't stop her, and I've made my peace with the fact that those are 2 different positions. There's an index card taped to the bottom drawer of the steel cabinet now. I copied Joan's handwriting as best I could, which is not very well. It says, "If you didn't read it, you don't own it." Tate saw it his first Saturday. He read it twice and didn't say anything. Then he picked up the pull bar and asked where to start. "Don't start in the corner," I told him. "You'll trap yourself." People ask if I forgave her. It's a fair question. I've had a long time to think about it. I'm not angry at her anymore. I don't wake up at 3 in the morning about any of it. I don't check her page. And I also don't give her anything. Not money, not access, not 1 more hour of my life. It took me 57 years to figure out those are 2 separate things. Nobody teaches you that. Not in church, not from your parents. I thought if I stopped giving, I became the bad guy in the story. I thought decency meant you keep pouring until the pitcher's empty, and then you apologize for not having more. My father had to ride in an ambulance before I understood the difference. A kindness, with nothing around it, isn't a kindness. It's an open door, and some people will walk through it and never once wonder who built it. I still love my son. I still love my family. I just don't sign for them anymore. Tuesday morning, 8:35. My father is at the end of the driveway. No canvas bag, no water bottle, no clinic. He hasn't needed the clinic since March. Different medication protocol, different cardiologist, different outcome. When you don't miss appointments, medicine gets the chance to work. He's holding 2 cups of coffee. A white cargo van pulls up. Tate gets out in his coveralls. He takes one of the cups. "Grandpa," he says, "you're early." Learned that from your father. I'm standing at the workshop window with sawdust on the glass, watching the two of them stand in the road in the early light, talking about something I can't hear. I don't need to hear it. I don't go out. I let them have it. That workshop was never the story. It was never even close to the story. The story was always about who was willing to show up and carry what needed carrying. And it turned out those two had been waiting to find each other all along. I just needed to stop standing in between long enough for them to do it.